Okay, are you guys ready?
Jap.
Oh, belum ya?
The debaters in already? Not yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all of them are in. Okay, judges.
I think judges all in.
All in already, Okay. So can we start already? Okay, how many judges are in here already? Aviana, you, and I think Nazira, right?
No. I think Chico Astria. I'm not sure if Chico Astria is in.
I didn't see her icon.
Yeah, I also cannot see her also.
Yeah. She is not here yet. So maybe have to ask someone to add her in. Astria. Bintulu and Kidurong. Astria.
Chico Astria.
She's. I think she's here already. Okay. I'm here. Okay. Since everyone is in, if we are ready, then we can start.
Give me a few minutes. Is it okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay, adjudicators, can we start now?
Yes. The
Yes.
other two ready? Okay, good. We can start.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Preliminary 2 of Virtual English Language Debate. I'm Ahmad Shamir bin Judaidi, and I'll be the Speaker of the House, and Ms. Nur Atikah binti Yusri will be the timekeeper for this room. The motion for this round is, this House believes that COVID-19 vaccination should be precondition for students to resume in-person classes. Before we proceed, I would like to remind the speakers of both teams of some rules and guidelines to observe in the course of debate. Here are the general rules for the debate. The first, second, and third speakers of each team will be given 8 minutes to speak. For the reply speech, the reply speaker is given 4 minutes to deliver the speech. The timekeeper will ring the bell once after the first minute and at the end of the 7th minute to signal the time allocated for point of information. At the end of the 8th minute, the bell will be rung twice. Point of information can be offered only after the first minute and before 7 minutes of your opponent's speech. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for the reply speech. During the reply speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell once. At the 3rd minute to signal that the debater has 1 minute left. At the end of the 4th minute, the bell will be rung twice to signal the end of the debate. Make sure that you mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Before we begin, let me introduce to you our panel of adjudicators for today's debate. The chief adjudicator is Ms. Stephanie Loy Siumi from SMK Baru. Next, we have Madam Alviana Fedora binti Ujat from SMK Ashakirin. And last but not least is Ms. Astria binti Muhammad Amin from SMK Banda. On behalf of the House, I extend a warm welcome to our judges.
Thank you.
Now, let's invite the government bench from SMK Kidurong and opposition bench from SMK Bintulu to introduce themselves. Let's begin with the government bench.
Hi, can you hear me? I am
Yes.
the first speaker. I am the first speaker of the government team.
Your name, please.
My name is Kumaira, and I'm the Prime Minister.
Hi, I'm Hazi Hazra. I'm the Deputy Prime Minister of the government team, and I will also be presenting you my reply speech. Thank you.
Hello there, my name is Elisha Varshel, and I am the third speaker of the proposition team.
Next, let's introduce the opposition team.
Hi, a very good morning. My name is Athanasius Carlos, and I will be the leader of opposition from SMK Bintulu.
Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ambrose, representing SMK Bintulu.
Opposition Whip.
Hello, my name is Clarence. I'll be doing the week speech for opposition today, representing SMK Bintulu.
Without further ado, I call this House to order on the motion. This House believes that COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. Let's invite the Prime Minister to begin her speech.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to the respected speaker, cautious timekeeper, honorable judges, our worthy opponents, and members of the respected team. Today, I, as the first speaker, will be defining and interpret the motion and to develop the case for the proposition. The second speaker of the government team will refute the arguments presented by the leader of the opposition and to add her arguments. And the government whip will refute all the flimsy points given by the opposition, summarize the debate, and leave you no doubt that the COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. Without further ado, I will be defining today's motion that the COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person class. The COVID-19 vaccination is a shot that you took to prevent from getting infected. And condition will mean, precondition will mean a condition that must be fulfilled beforehand. And students are us, we are students. Resume is to continue again. And in-person class is classes in school. Now, why do we agree that the COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person class? Getting COVID-19 vaccination, it decreased the risk of getting infected by the COVID-19. The coronavirus COVID-19 is so tiny, 1 millionth of an inch in size, that it can only be seen through a special microscope. Yet, in the first few months of 2020, it caused a pandemic that literally brought the entire world to its knees, from Wuhan, China, where it was first discovered, to the rest of Asia, Europe, and America. It infected over 500,000 people in 150 countries in the world and caused thousands upon thousands of deaths. Luckily, in 2021, we have researchers have found a cure, a vaccine, a COVID-19 vaccine. It's, for example, the Pfizer vaccine, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. So why the COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person class? It decreases the risk of getting infected. The COVID vaccination is like a shield to protect us from a public place. Public place is the school. The school has a lot of children and students, so they use the vaccine to protect them and minimize the risk of getting affected by the COVID-19. And also, okay, moving on.
POI, Miss.
Sure.
Yeah, so you said that vaccination is used to protect students from getting infected. But what about the students who are aged below 12, those who are unable to get the vaccine because of their biological health conditions, because they're not old enough to get vaccines? Should we just give them the vaccines without worrying about the side effects?
Are you sure what you're saying? That it has side effect for the child below 12? Not sure about that, but yeah, you can. Yes.
Yes, so there are studies from countries like Israel, Singapore, and also the United Kingdom that have reported side effects like angina, which is the inflammation of the heart because of the vaccines. That is a proof that there will be side effects when we give vaccines to children below 18, especially below 12.
Oh, I will give that POI to my second speaker. Okay, moving on. We have been to school when it's in a pandemic. We have been in school at September with no vaccines. We only have SOPs, the standard operational SOP. SOP is enough to protect us from the COVID-19, and also, it's such a privilege to be joining this debate today. My internet connection is
Points of
superb.
information.
Sure.
Yes, you said that SLP is enough safety for our children. But why you have to require our students to necessarily take the vaccine so that you allow them to go to school? Why is that the case?
Your voice I can't hear.
So you're saying that SLP is enough already to tackle this COVID problem, but why you have to force students to get vaccinated so they will be able to get back to school?
Minimize the risk. SOP plus vaccine, double protection. Okay, moving on. My internet connection is superb and I don't have any problems with online learning, but some of our friends do. They are way behind us and struggle a lot to keep up with their studies. This will further explain by my Deputy Prime Minister. We also stand for this motion today. It's because we prioritize education. It's more effective in school rather than online learning. I'm sure you agree because you're a student too. We struggle a lot because of procrastination. We have a lot of work besides the online learning. We help our mothers at home. There's a lot of distraction, but by going to school with the COVID-19 vaccination, it's safe. It's more efficient to study and meet our peers. That's all for me today. Thank you. I rest my case.
Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 46 seconds. Now, let's invite a leader of opposition to begin his speech.
Am I audible?
Yes.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A very good morning I bid to the honorable adjudicators, accurate timekeeper, my worthy side of the position, loyal teammates, and members of the floor. Upon the motion that this House believes that COVID-19 vaccination is a precondition for students to resume in-person classes, we, on the side of the opposition, beg to oppose this motion. Let us start the debate today by defining the motion. According to the Oxford Dictionary, COVID-19 vaccine is a vaccine intended to provide acquired immunity against severe acute respiratory syndrome, known as coronavirus 2, specifically SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes the coronavirus disease that happened in 2019, in other words, COVID-19. Vaccination is defined as to give a person or animal a vaccine to produce immunity against a disease. Precondition is defined as a condition where it has to be fulfilled before something has been done. Resume is defined as the act to begin again or to continue after an interruption. The word should is defined as is used to indicate what's best to be done. And last but not least, the phrase in-person class refers to face-to-face classes. Therefore, let the opposition stand be clear on today's debate. We strongly believe that the act of giving vaccines to students as a precondition before classes begin is not effective, and it will take a very long time to happen. Before I put forward the opposition's first case line, allow me to rebut the feeble arguments brought forward by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister mentioned that vaccines should be given to all students before they are going to school because it will give enough protection for them and so the chances of them to get infected will be lower. However, the Prime Minister seems like that she doesn't understand that vaccines are given at a certain age limit. At first, when the coronavirus vaccine was made, it was initially only for those who are aged above 18. And when it is announced that vaccines should be given to people below 18, it is only limited to those who are aged from 12 to 17 years old. And not only that, even these students, these people aged from 12 to 17 needs to be monitored first. And when they get the vaccine, they will be under monitoring to see if there are any side effects. And from the Education Minister, Dr. Razi Jidin, as well as the Health Director General, which is Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham, they both stated that these vaccines are not to be given to students below 18 in Malaysia because they are worried of the side effects, like I have mentioned in my POI in China. Go ahead.
I'm sure you had read the news that the ones who taking SPM are already been vaccinated. So there's no side effect at all. They are already getting the vaccine.
Okay, so to answer your question, it is announced that they will be given the vaccine, but they haven't received the vaccine. So how do we know that they don't have the side effects when they haven't even been given the vaccine yet? You stated that SPM students will be given the vaccine, but it doesn't mean that they already have the vaccine, thus we don't know what are the side effects. So, ladies and gentlemen, now that I have rebutted the Prime Minister's feeble argument, allow me to continue the opposition's case line. We, the opposition, do not agree that COVID-19 vaccination is a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. Members of the floor, before I continue, allow me to specify the role of the opposition speakers. As the leader of opposition, I will present one point on how this act of giving vaccines as a precondition to students before they enter class is very ineffective because of the rollout vaccination rate in Malaysia and other countries. My second speaker will present 2 points to solidify our case line, which is firstly, how physical learning is much more effective than online learning. And as with the slow rate of vaccination distribution, we will never be able to reach physical, we'll never be able to allow physical classes from happening before we can give the vaccine. And secondly, having this precondition means that other undeveloped countries, third world countries, would face problems in giving education to their students. Our third speaker on the opposition side shall not deliver any new points, but rebut all the points brought up by the side of the government and reaffirm our side for today. So, members of the floor, let's talk about vaccination rollout in general. Malaysians have received the good news that vaccination rollouts will start soon. This vaccination plan of the masses has been announced since the Q3 of 2020, which is July, August, and September. This is surely good news, but do not think that this is all good and well. The main problem with this vaccination rollout is that it is very slow. The problem is that the distribution of vaccines to countries works on a first-come, first-served basis. In other words, the richer, more developed countries will have their hands on the vaccine first, and the other countries will have to wait to get theirs. This is an issue because the strategy is that we're prioritizing the older generations before the younger generations to get vaccinated. This is because the immune system of older generations are weaker compared to the younger generation. So obviously, it is logical to give vaccines to the older generation first. However, because vaccines, other countries are all racing to get their vaccines, some countries will receive it late. For example, Japan and Malaysia. And thus, if we have to wait for a long time, and then once we actually have the vaccine, then we can give it to the older generation first, that means that students will have to wait a very long time. So how long do we have to wait for students to get vaccinated if we are still in the phase of giving vaccines to the older generation? We're not going to neglect the fact Malaysia is considered ineffective in rolling out vaccines. By the time all students get vaccinated, it'll already take years. For example, from January to April, the vaccination rollout rate in Malaysia is below 100,000 daily, and with an average of only 50,000 doses per day. Malaysia has an average population of 32 million people. So imagine how slow that would be. The government is also prioritizing older generation, like I've mentioned, and 48.19% of the country's population had received at least one dose of the vaccine. And that percentage, a small percentage, are just adults over 18. To make matters worse, the Education Minister, Dato Radzi Jitin, and the Minister in charge of the National Vaccination Plan, Khairi Jamaluddin, has already confirmed that they are not considering at any time soon to vaccinate students. We still have a lot of people to get vaccinated. Can we possibly vaccinate the entire adult population above the age of 18 and then vaccinate students below 18 in a way that is efficient and in an as soon as possible basis? Yes, the lives of people are important. We don't deny it. But the fact that education is lagging behind because of the slow rollout of vaccines, the unchangeable circumstances, is also a matter to be concerned about. And to summarize my speech, I shall give alternative ways instead of having COVID-19 vaccine as a precondition. For example, schools can be reopened by phases. For example, those who take exams like SPM and STPM will be prioritized. And then after a few weeks, then we can have Form 4 students, then Form 3, and then Form 2, and so on and so forth. SOPs will also be enforced, so that students will have a lower rate of getting infected even though they're all in the same school building. With these ways, we can allow students to go back to physical classes and study as usual, even though they haven't received the vaccine yet, because it is important to give education in an effective way. And so, members of the floor, with that, we, the opposition, strongly believe that COVID-19 vaccination as a precondition for students to resume in-person classes should not be agreed. We, the opposition, beg to oppose. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 9 minutes and 1 second. Next, let's invite Deputy Prime Minister to begin.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to our respected speaker, precise timekeeper, honorable judges, members of the opposition team, and members of the floors. The topic for our debate is that this House believes that COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. I will first rebut the first negative speaker's point. The first speaker from the negative team has tried to tell you that vaccination, COVID-19 vaccination is not effective to the younger generation, and it takes a long time to get vaccinated. This is wrong because by not effective, I believe you have heard the most recent news that some students under 18 already received COVID-19 vaccination. Although I agree that it takes a long time to get vaccinated, but okay, wait. Although I agree that it takes a long time to get vaccinated, but in order to keep our society in a safe health, we gotta keep waiting. Yeah, PI?
Yeah, so you said that students below 18 have already received the vaccine, but where are the statistics? Where is the proof? Can you give that to us, dear government?
I'm sorry that I can't give you the statistics, but I believe that some students around us in our school already took it. For mostly the students that are taking the SPM this year.
Points of information.
Huh?
Points of information.
Okay.
You said that my prime minister has spoke that vaccinations are not effective and take a long time. Yes, we agree that take a long time, but he never said that vaccinations are not effective. He only state that vaccinations are not effective in distributing and not effective on the minors, which are 12
Yeah,
years
that's
and
what
below, and with the specific conditions. What do you have to say to that?
I already stated, that it is not effective for the younger generation, which is the the, the children below 12. I already stated that.
POI, miss?
Okay. Okay.
So you said that vaccines are not effective for children below 12. So that means, are you agreeing with us, dear government? Are you saying that
No,
vaccination should be a precondition?
what I said was, I only re rephrase your phrase, okay? And I already said that I disagree with that, because you need to listen better, okay? I disagree with that, because some of the students around us, at least younger than 18 years old, are already taking the vaccination. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my point. Before that, I'm gonna make a recap. Our first speaker has already explained that getting COVID-19 vaccination will decrease the risk of getting infected. As the second affirmative speaker, I will be talking to you.
Points of information.
As the rejected. As the second affirmative speaker, I will be talking to you about 3 points. About some points. Why this house believes that COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. My first point will be, a lot of students complain that they can't focus during online class because of the distraction in their home. Some parents don't understand that it's hard for them to focus in online school if the parents keep asking them to do the chores. That's why they prefer to be in person classes. But they want to be in a safe condition. Yes.
So the problem of doing chores are also occurring while we don't have online classes. Are you saying that we have never, the parents don't have the respect on their children while they have online class to ask them to do chores? And are you saying that it isn't a responsibility for the minors to help a little chores for their parents?
That's what I was saying. Like I said, some parents, they don't really understand that how it is super distracting for them to do the chores. Of course, parents nowadays, both of the parents are working, so they don't have time to do the chores, so they need to ask for help from their children. Moving on to my second point is, online school is making students procrastinate. Without teacher in front of them, like in person class, they can't really, they don't really have the motivation, with the cases rising, a lot of clusters, they really can't focus. It's ruining their mental health. But in person class, they could do better. Moving on to my last point is the land coverage that is not always stable for most students, especially in rural area. Okay, both of this point, it has linked that students prefer to be in person class. Mind you that these students, we need this generation in the next generation. Some of them have bright future. So we need to care for their health and their and their safety by giving them vaccination. Also, I want to answer the previous POI given to my first speaker about why COVID-19 vaccination for students is required, but SOP is enough to tackle. Like we said, SOP and COVID-19 vaccination both are important to keep track of their health. SOP, we didn't say SOP is enough to tackle because some of the students they don't really follow the SOP like in school. We could see that in previous school, in-person school, we can see that they don't really follow the SOP because they don't have self-control. So by getting vaccination, we can assure that at least they are confident to be safe in school around the others. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 51 seconds. To continue, let's invite Deputy Leader of Opposition to begin his speech.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I would like my POIs verbally. So I won't look at the text. I won't look at your screens or whatsoever. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, as the second speaker of the opposition today, I will first likely to rebut the point of the government presented by the government side. The Prime Minister stated that she is about the ineffectiveness on vaccinations as the rebuke to my Prime Minister POI. I must say in this conversation, I think that we can already conclude government is already partially in our side because number one, they talked about the ineffectiveness of vaccination as a rebut of our point. But then in the Deputy Prime Minister's speech, she said that she didn't agree with the vaccination is not effective. So it means that they are clashing their own points. They constantly use the phrase of "I believe so," "I believe that," without even giving any statistic, any proven statistic from proven sites. And then the Deputy Prime Minister also spoke that the SOP will be enough, which is partially agreeing with us. Without further ado, let me move to my points. Number one, I will talk about how physical learning is better than online learning. We will have to stay at home because it will take a long time for vaccine rollout. Official exams will have to keep being postponed because students need to stay at home and wait for vaccines. Staying at home and learning online will definitely not be enough for students to get fully prepared and ready for the most important examinations of their lives, which is SPM and STPM exam. According to the University of Malaya 2020, Ahmad Azlan, more than 60% of the students find physical learning much more efficient. Therefore, should we really jeopardize students' future and force them to stay at home until they are vaccinated? To quote Snyder, Grumman, and Coates, the academic environment provides individuals with the opportunity to form and maintain friendships, acquire leadership skills, learn about conflict resolution and cooperation, and develop positive self-concepts, in addition to enhancing academic achievement, which cannot be done while we are learning online, at least not efficiently. On the other hand, if students were to maintain home and participants in online classes until they get themselves vaccinated and go back to school, the level of socialization required is minimized. Students can still text and call friends, but these interactions mostly do not acquire body language or eye contact, which is very needed in the future when minors get into adults and they need to go to work. Students can still that hence students will not be able to develop good social skills and might encounter problems while working together with colleagues in the future. Secondly, what I want to talk about is that how inconveniences of undeveloped or poor countries cannot afford online learning, which is already stated in government speech, which I believe that they are agreeing with us. There are so many countries that have low supply of vaccinations, you see, less electronic gadgets to work with, and also low efficiency of line connections. The vaccine rollout is much less efficient, which means that it is very slow for them to get vaccinated. The vaccination rate is even worse in undeveloped countries, which means that they will take even longer to go back to school compared to others. According to Johns Hopkins University, countries such as Syria, South Sudan, Vietnam have less than 2% vaccination rates. It will take years before it's turn for students to vaccinate. Since in certain countries, even the first stage, elderly has been fully vaccinated, the US is an arsenal with COVID-19 vaccines. The Biden administration won't donate the poor countries any of the coronavirus vaccine. Those the US has purchased before the most Americans are vaccinated. Therefore, if vaccination was a precondition for students to go back to school, unvaccinated students in undeveloped countries will have to stay at home and join online classes. In poor countries, there is a phenomenon that we are all familiar with, which is that most families don't have electronic gadgets, or many of them need to share electronic gadgets among siblings to join online classes. According to Sinchu Daily, there was one student that didn't join online classes for the whole year because of lack of electronic gadgets. Does the opposition not have any empathy for undeveloped countries? And are only focusing on developed countries such as the US or the UK or Sweden? United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Wednesday, and vaccine equity is the biggest moral test before the global community. With the poor condition of learning, it means students in undeveloped countries can't seem to get the same opportunity to learn as the people who have stable economic status. So I want to ask, what would this occur? Though this widens the socio-economic inequality and worsen capitalism, the poor could never get the same opportunity to learn in the long run. Take note, in the long run. Families and people with certain income brackets will forever be trapped in a cycle and never have the opportunity to break the cycle of poverty. With that being said, are we really going to deny education opportunities to unvaccinated students that majority came from poor communities? Are we going to restrict the ability for poor communities to learn? Remember that there are other countries than the US. There are lots of countries who are suffering in poverty. With that being said, when you bring out your points, yes.
By not getting the vaccination, you are also risking the others' safety and health, not just yourself. You cannot be selfish. You need to.
We are not being selfish. See, we are valuing this in the long term, which is we are including the poor communities who cannot learn to learn. Sure, the cases will risen, but what is the problem is we are here to solve the social economic inequality. So what by your point means I need to say you are being selfish because you are not including the poor communities. You are not valuing the importance of the no thank you. You are not valuing the importance for them to learn. We have the Prime Minister already stated we are going to alternate between the serious cases areas and the not serious cases areas. So I want to ask a woman, are you going to expand the capitalism? Because by all means you are actually accepting that the capitalism to widen, and you have no problem of one group of people dominating the whole resources of the humanity in the long run. With that, I'm very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 54 seconds. Now, let's invite a government whip to begin her speech.
Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I will begin my debate in 3, 2, and 1. Good morning to the respected judges, our patient timekeeper, our worthy opponents, and members of the respected team. The motion for our debate today is that COVID-19 vaccination should be a precaution for students to resume in-person classes. As the third speaker of the government team, I'm going to review all the points stated by the opposition team. Now, the first speaker has stated that giving the vaccine is not effective in distributing and it will take a long time. It's slow, but in the end, it will be worth it. As students' immune system is strengthened and students will have the chance to head to school safely. Some students, for example, in America, under 18 has already taken the vaccine, and it is reported that it is successful.
POI, sir.
I'll accept the POI.
Yeah, so you said that it will be worth it to vaccinate these students in the long run because although it is slow, it will be worth it as it will build the immune system. However, does that mean that the government also thinks that it is worth it for students to delay their important exams like SPM, like STPM? And if they stick to online classes for a long time, that means that only 1 month before the SPM or STPM examinations, only then they can go back to physical classes, which is important. And by the time when they go to classes, it means that whether they get the vaccine or not, they have to go to classes anyway. What is your opinion?
Can you repeat that again for me? I would like you to repeat it so slowly. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. So you said that although the vaccination rollout rate is slow, it will all be worth it because students will build the immunity against the virus. However, does this mean that the government also thinks that it is worth it for us to delay the most important examinations of students, for example, SPM and STPM? Because in the end, no matter they get vaccinated or not, they must have at least 1 month of schooling for them to have their trials before they sit for their actual examination. And during their examination, they can't have it online. They will go to school anyway. So in the end, whether they have the vaccine or not, they will still have to go to school. What is your opinion on that?
With the vaccination, it should be much safer for the students to actually apply for the exam. Does that answer your question?
Go on.
All right. So I'm going to review the second speaker point. They stated that physical learning is better than online learning. All right, so physical learning is better than online learning. Are you agreeing with us on this point? Because the vaccination is needed so that physical learning is so much more safer than now.
Points of information.
Go ahead.
How long do you think that this pandemic will last?
Quite a long time.
POI, sir?
POI, sir.
I'm going to deny POIs. The second speaker also stated that undeveloped countries can afford the vaccine and that they can get the same opportunities as they are undeveloped and they have poor community. All right, go ahead.
We need a solid statistic. We don't need your opinion. We need a statistic. We need a statistic to prove that your opinion is true. Can you provide a solid statistic for us?
I'm going to have to deny that as well, PI. Now I'm going to summarize the point given by the government team. Our first speaker has stated that it would decrease the risk of getting infected during classes. Students must get vaccinated as it will decrease the risk of getting infected by COVID-19. By getting vaccinated, not only you will lower the risk of yourself getting infected, but you can also lower the risk of infecting others. For example, a vaccination that can be taken is Sinovac. Now on to the second speaker's points. Our second speaker has stated that a lot of students are complaining about being distracted in online classes. This is true. For example, your sibling crying loudly, it is a form of distraction as it is loud. So with the vaccination, we can solve this problem. This is true. While the vaccination, students are able to head to school without too much risk of infecting others, as they themselves or get others infected and are able to focus on their education. Our second speaker has also stated that a lot of students procrastinate and they don't have the motivation in class, and they can do it better if they are in person. With the vaccination, we can bring students back to school so that they can study in person. And on to the last point, the line coverage isn't stable for most students. So there are students who are underprivileged and are unable to afford line coverage, as the only way they can get their education is to head to school physically. Well, this is true because the vaccination will help ensure the safety of those who are underprivileged. Yes, go ahead.
So the points given by the government only talk about why students should go back to school. But the whole motion today, the whole point is that why COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition before we go to school. So the government only talks about why it's important. And we also think that it's important for going back to school. And that's why we believe that COVID-19 vaccination should not be a precondition because of all the points that we've mentioned earlier. For example, the rollout being too slow, etc. So what is the government trying to achieve here?
We're trying to give reasons as to why learning at home is not as effective as learning in person. So with this vaccination, this procedure can help students head back to school so that they can, as in-person studying, can help them focus more. Does that answer your question?
Just go on.
Right. So this is true because the vaccination will help ensure the safety of those who are underprivileged and that are heading to school for their education, and will give them a chance at getting an education. In conclusion, dear judges, we're in full agreement with today's motion. COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes. Children's education and safety must be prioritized as they are the future generation of this country. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, let's invite Opposition Whip to begin his speech.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Our whip, Clarence, has to go to the washroom for a minute because of an emergency. So can we give him a bit of time first?
So, Miss Ayu? Oh?
Our opposition whip is at the toilet. He'll be back very soon.
I'm
Can
back,
you give
I'm
him?
back.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
So I prefer my POI to be audibly. So start my speech in 3, 2, 1. When COVID-19 hit, everyone is waiting for their vaccines to arrive. Students are the last group to get vaccinated. They are bearing the cost of vaccine delay because they are not being prioritized. I think for far too long, students in this debate have been trapped in their homes facing blank piece of screens because vaccines rolls out are too slow, and getting them back to school is important because some of us here simply cannot wait for years and months to get vaccinated. The strategy mistakes committed by government today is simple. First, they come out with lots of principal arguments to tell you how important it is to get vaccinated, but they never understand or completely neglect the fact that students are the class that is being left out in this debate. Secondly, it's not that opposition doesn't want to vaccinate our students or the opposition is selfish. It's just that every country is competing for vaccine. They don't understand how, under the current status quo, things are not perfect. They don't understand how COVID vaccines are limited. I'll ask them a POI, and they even agree with me the fact that we might live with COVID for another 3 or 4 years. 3 areas of clashes in this debate. First, right to get education versus right to be protected against the virus. Second, should we vaccinate the students given that vaccines are not suitable for certain people's biological conditions? Third, online learning experience versus virtual classroom experience. First, right to get education versus right to be protected against the virus. Let's compare their arguments with our arguments. I feel like the government cannot ignore the rights of our students when it comes to education. They tell you how their policy will guarantee the safety of children and teachers. But the problem is, the government can't get away with this. Vaccines rolls out is taking forever. The distribution rate is low. If vaccination was a precondition, it would take a very long time before students could go back to school. COVID level is quite low, even though you have COVID variant emerging, but teachers are already vaccinated and students' immunity are often strong so that it's not lethal to them. This rebuttal deals with the arguments on the absolute highest, as we hear absolutely no response from this. We understand how it is important for students and teachers to get vaccinated so they get the chance to study in a safe environment. But this is how our world is. It is not perfect. We have to understand that the imperfect of our world. So it's important we take measures that create the greater good. I think when government says they can move things online and get people vaccinated after that, I think that might be a little bit too idealistic for government to begin with. In other words, the richer, more developed countries will have their hands on the vaccine first, and the other countries will have to wait to get theirs. This is an issue because the strategy is that we are prioritizing the older generation before the younger generation to get vaccinated. So how long do we have to wait for students to get vaccinated? Second, should we vaccinate our students? Because not everyone is not comfortable with vaccination. I think it's clear that when our Minister Khairy Jamaluddin listed AstraZeneca as a controversial vaccine, his concerns are justified because it is true that certain people are not really suitable for vaccines. I think government cannot escape the burden of vaccines by saying that these are not the problem with vaccines themselves. They are suitable for everyone, blah, blah, blah. These are factual things that are happening in the world we live in. We see that every day on the headlines of newspaper. These are what people observe and connect for themselves in real life rights. So when government say the only way you can get to school is that you must vaccinate, I think it basically puts people's lives at risk. That's why I think government is really irresponsible when it deal with my first speaker argument by saying there's no such thing. Opposition is telling fake news. First, online learning experience versus virtual classroom experience. We're all students and teachers. We all know how hard it is to maintain discipline when we study online. So when all assignments move online, I think it basically demotivates our students. The judges here are teachers well. I think they know the feeling of not being able to monitor children, right? Besides that, when my first speaker tells you how it is important so that we allow students to have the opportunity to socialize with others. The fact that school in and of itself isn't just about academic discussion, right? So when you move extracurricular activity online, it basically destroys the meaning. So there are certain things that virtual classroom experience can't replace. Yes, it is true that we have alternatives when it comes to learning, but I think that the learning alternative is to basically destroy the essence of school, and we hear no response on this. Besides, honestly, when government talks about how their agenda, they certainly do not include those large family coming from an underprivileged background, because the fact that buying a computer for them might mean they have to eat a month of Maggie curry for every meal. I think they are victims of this pandemic and realize how this is extremely unfair to them. Mind you, when government says they want to protect them, we have no objection with it. I think the problem with government is that they are always hoping for the best results, which is to allow students to get their education through a blank piece of screen first. And when all other classes of people are vaccinated, then it is students' turn to get vaccinated. This is unfair to them because my first speaker has told you how standards of measures like SOP can be practiced in schools, and teachers are already vaccinated. And to be honest, yes, I even agree with us. Are these perfect? Absolutely not. But we think that on the comparative, that students already have access to lots of protection in the first place, right? That's the case that we're willing to defend for. Before I move on, any POIs?
You can go on.
Right. So members of the House, under government world, you can never go back to school because there are no free vaccines for you. I think though in the world of precision, things are not perfect. There will inevitably having children who are infected with COVID-19. But I think under government world, things could be more worse, could be worse because they are completely one-sided and have neglected the groups of children. It is true that children and our students are vulnerable, but we believe that they have lots of access to protection in the first place. So first, because teachers are immunized. Second, students have generally stronger immunity. Third, measures like SOP can be carried out at school, though it is not perfect, but at least people coming from rural areas don't have to wait for government to rescue them so that they can have the access to education. From the very beginning of this debate, we have pointed out clearly that our world is not perfect, but we need to opt for the best and not to be too idealistic. UPSR and PD3 have been buried by this pandemic, and we ought to stop this again. Get students back to schools, we oppose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Hilang datang lah nya pun nak ya. Kami si dengar thank you-nya, nya terus.
It's okay. Debaters, you are now given 3 minutes to prepare for your reply speech. The 3 minutes have ended. I shall now invite the reply speaker from opposition side to deliver the speech.
Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the floor, upon the motion of this House believe that COVID-19 vaccination should be a precondition for students to resume in-person classes, I would like to wrap up our debate and elaborate deeply on one main clash that went on during this debate. The main and most important clash in debate today is the question of vaccine inequality. The government has tried to explain why vaccinations will protect students when they go back to school, but they gave a lot of false information, and they even lied that the teenagers and children have gotten their vaccinations. Because of this, government's argument is unable to stand, and therefore it falls. What government gave is very broad concept. And failed to consider the consequences of banning unvaccinated students for attending. Students in the rural areas will not get vaccinated anytime soon. Is government insinuating that it is justified to deny education opportunities to unvaccinated students, to poor students? Government has also failed to realize that some of the people just won't be able to get vaccinated. Government didn't show any statistics out of the massive number of deaths of those who are vaccinated, yet sadly still lost the battle against COVID-19, such as Simon Scott. You can still vaccinated and lose the virus. So why? Government, are you so enthusiastic to mandate? You state you want to approach this motion, but you never stated the ways to overcome the problems encountered, which are the arguments provided by the opposition side. In contrast, our House provided substantial evidence as to why it is important for students to go back to school without the precondition of being vaccinated. We also stated alternative ways can be done without vaccination, such as enforce standard operation procedures. We quote data from official authorities such as the World Health Organization, which stated that SOPs can definitely lower the risk of infection and transmission of the COVID-19. Which has never been done by the government. We do not need to wait for vaccines to go back to school because we can protect ourselves to follow strict protocols and being careful. Ladies and gentlemen, so now let's picture the world of government and opposition. We have no problem when the government says that full vaccinations will decrease the risk of getting the virus and prevent it from infecting others. But the irresponsibility of the government towards the poor communities, which is a majority, can never be tolerated. If we follow government's policies, the majority cannot have the right to learn the same as the rich. In the long run, capitalism will get worse. Realize that the government has no problem with a group of people dominating the resources of the whole of the community in the long run. Whereas the opposition side may have a lower ceiling, slight slow on the COVID recovery plan. However, we have included the poor communities in our recovery plan, providing the right for the whole community to learn from them to turn their lives around. We have made the world easier for every single citizen, no matter the rich or poor. We are all one. Let's unite and think of all countries, not just developed countries like USA and the UK, Canada, and Sweden. We do not have any more time to waste on empty waiting for vaccinations. There are many ways to protect ourselves when we go back to school besides being vaccinated. Therefore, we, the opposition, believe that the COVID-19 vaccination should not be a precondition for students to go back to school. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make the world a better place, please come to opposition side. With that, I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 1 second. Next, let's invite the reply speaker from government side.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is at the end of our debate, and it is time for me, the second speaker, to give you some reply speech. First, I will elaborate on the main clashes that happened between both parties. First, they say that giving vaccination to younger generation is not effective and will take a long time to wait. We say we will focus on the students that are taking the major important exams, such as SPM and STPM. Like they say, it will take weeks and months for them to go to school and learn before taking the major important exams. And that is why we will focus first on the students that are taking the major important exams. They say physical learning is better than online. Yes, we agree. That's what we were trying to say. Physical learning is better than online. It's easier to focus in in-person school and in in-person classes. This is why we need to go as soon as possible to the in-person classes, but we want to ensure the students are safe and secure. They don't want to go to school with the feeling of fear and anxious because of the risk of getting infected. We already said that by getting COVID-19 vaccination, it will decrease the risk of getting infected in getting the virus in in-person classes. So example, Slovak. We also stated that a lot of students are complaining that there are a lot of distractions, such as line coverage is not good, and then some students don't have privilege to buy the phone, so they need to share with their parents or their siblings' phones. It is so uncomfortable for them to study that way. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our future generation. We need them. They need a better future. They need a comfortable environment. They need a safe and a healthy place, safe and healthy situation. Also, the government keep giving statistics on how it is not how long it will take for the vaccine to be safe for the children and for the students. But how are you going to ensure that students will be safe at school without COVID-19 vaccination? They keep stating that our world is not perfect, especially the third speaker. Our world is not perfect. Our world is not perfect. But until when? When are we going to step up? When are we going to create a healthy and safe environment? If we keep saying that our world is not perfect, we don't need to take the vaccination. We need to take an initiative. We need to take the vaccination, not just for ourselves, but for other people as well. The new generation need education and also need safety and health and good health in order to keep our generation secure. This is why us, the government team, believe that COVID-19 vaccination should be preconditioned for going to resume in-person classes. If you want to have a secure world, then you should stand with us, the government, instead of our world is not perfect. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 27 seconds. That's the end for our debate. Adjudicators, please key in your score sheet to the technical officer before head back to the main room. Debaters, please remain in this room.
现在你们看。
Now, I would like to announce the result for today's debate. The motion for today is rejected. So the winning team is from SMK Bintulu. All right, I thank the adjudicators and the debaters. This concludes preliminary 2. We will head back to the main room for the next announcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Saya ada. Alah, siapa perkara kecil je ya. Oh, saya dah. Mau speaker nepuk tangan juga kelak kan? Dengar ke? Dengar sih.
Dah, kami close all room ah.
Close semua tu kah?
Close.
Tutup semua kah? So,
Balik ke
rehat dulu
main
ada
room.
kah?
Cici, pulang ke main room.
Okay. Ambil.
I will type again at the chat there. Okay, because I forgot about it. For prelim 2, okay, the registration for prelim 2. Thank you very much.